Coming up on Enough Already, Fingers and I discuss his inability to put the fork down. Bernie Sanders unmasks himself as the idiot we all knew him to be. Then we get into a serious, in-depth conversation about EPA regulations and how it's screwed up cars and whether or not you should put solar panels on your house. Then we are joined by Ashe Schow from the Washington Examiner and New York Observer for a little bit of ash kicking. And we round things out with Fox News contributor Monica Crowley. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Leave us a 5-star rating while you're there. You can also catch us on Stitcher if you're one of those Google phone kids. All right, enough already.
Well, I've had a shit week.
Tell me something I do not know.
Do you want to hear about it?
If I must.
Well, you have a choice. You could tell me to fuck off, and then we could just move on. But if you said that to me, if you told me to fuck off right now, other than my mom passing away, that would be the most difficult moment of my life.
I wouldn't want to put you through that.
Thank you. So, I could go all the way back to the start of the weekend where I ate a large pizza in Saginaw, Michigan, and then couldn't sleep for 12 hours because I felt like I was 15 months pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day I decided it would be a good idea after going to the casino with my dad to go to the same bar that I got the pizza, and I got a pail of queso.
How big is a pail?
I'm guessing somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 quarts. I may be exaggerating.
Okay.
But there was a lot of queso. And I ran out of
just melted cheese?
Yeah, it's melted cheese, and it's got jalapeno dandruff and a whole bunch of other stuff like in the queso, okay?
Okay.
In the dip. And they never give you enough chips for the queso. You ever notice that?
No. It depends on how sparingly you use it or not.
They never give you enough chips. I don't care if you go to Chili's or if you go to a bar, I always run out of chips before I run out of queso.
Well, it's endless chips, though, right?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes they want to charge $1 for extra chips.
Oh, my God. How ridiculous.
What country are we living in?
Whole $1.
So, naturally, I run out of chips, and I've got 2 choices. I can either ask the waitress for more chips, but or I could just drink the rest of the cheese.
There's not a third option that involves like just stopping?
No.
Okay.
Have we met?
Yeah.
So I drank the rest of the cheese. Felt like shit the rest of the day Saturday. Sunday rolls around. I'm heading home from Michigan. I'm in central Indiana, close to Indianapolis. It's a 5-hour drive. Halfway home, right around the Michigan-Indiana border, I remember that there is a movie theater right off the highway. And I think to myself, this is a splendid opportunity to get movie popcorn for the road.
Have you done that before? Because I've never in my life thought about doing this. Just walking into a movie theater just for the popcorn.
Oh, yeah. Do it all the time.
Wow.
The looks you get are quite amusing. I walk right by the ticket agent who's wondering what the hell I'm doing, head straight to the concession stand. And small town movie theaters are the best. You're in Philadelphia. I don't know what they charge you for a bucket of popcorn and pop, but sometimes you have to finance it over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
This joint, I'm looking at the menu, and movie theaters in the last 15 years have done this whole value meal thing. They couple a couple of things together and say you're getting a deal. You get the popcorn and the pop for a certain price. So I'm walking in thinking, okay, don't be a fat ass. Just get the medium.
You were already gone on the fat ass portion when you stopped the car to do this. You were committed to fat assery at that point.
Not listening to you. So, don't be a fat ass, get the medium. So I'm walking in thinking I'm going to get a medium popcorn. and a medium pop. I look at the menu, $8.25 for a medium popcorn and a medium pop. Tracy Connors, that's a deal.
Okay.
But then right to the left, it says for a large tub of popcorn and a large pop, $8.75.
Wow. So you can supersize it for a quarter, is what you're saying?
Yes. So you gotta get more. This is America. I thought this was America.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, I get the large tub, and then I get the pop has to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 108 ounces.
And do you have a cup holder in your car that'll hold that?
No, I had to wedge it in. Thank God it was a cardboard cup. I was able to kind of twist a square peg in a round hole in this situation. And I was able to wedge the pop in the cup holder because my car's a 2004, back when pops, they were big, but now a large big gulp is like 120 ounces. So I'm back on the highway. I've got a large bucket of popcorn and 87 ounces of mellow yellow.
I haven't seen that on tap anywhere in a decade. I don't know if that's a Midwest thing. Maybe you guys have it. We don't. We have Mountain Dew.
Mellow yellow is Coke's version of Mountain Dew.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie theater had these machines now where you can it's got like 120 different varieties of soda, because you could add cherry vanilla and sarsaparilla and
we have those at every Wawa.
Weed. Wawa. What the hell's Wawa?
It's the best. I took you there when you were in Philly, the best convenience store ever.
Oh, yeah, the one with like a bank in it and
a bank,
serve ice cream machines, and
I don't know if they had ice cream machines, but they have the touchscreen ordering of any food you could possibly want to eat, pretty much, and make your own soda pop.
Right.
Yeah, that place.
So I'm heading back, and I'm about an hour into the trip. And I look down, and I completely obliterated that large bucket of popcorn all by myself.
Did you get butter on it, or
double butter?
Oh my God. How many napkins did you go through?
Just one.
And how big of a mess did you make?
There's a lot of popcorn all over my car that I haven't vacuumed out yet.
Uh-huh.
So I'm about an hour away from the movie theater. I look, the movie popcorn's gone. The 97 ounces of mellow yellow is gone. And I'm looking at the highway, and I'm thinking to myself, this is what's become of my life. This is what I do now. Tracy Connors, why am I overweight?
I think it's because you drive an automatic.
That's what it is?
Yeah, if you drove a stick shift, you couldn't do this much eating in the car.
I do a lot of eating in the car.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably gained 15 pounds over the weekend. Just from that.
That popcorn's got to have more calories than that pizza, I would bet.
Yeah. So then I'm feeling bad about myself. I talked to you about it, and you're like, suck it up, Buttercup. Put down the fork, and you'll lose weight.
Yeah, this is not rocket science.
Right. So I'm like, Tracy's exactly right. I need to put down the fork. So then I'm heading home from work on Monday, and there's a Little Caesars. Do you have Little Caesars in Pennsylvania there?
Somewhere, I'm sure.
Well, they do the $5 hot and readies.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, we have them at our Kmart's, I believe.
Yeah, Kmart. They have them at Kmart. Maybe this wasn't Monday. This was just like maybe yesterday or the day before. So I've got an hour commute back home from the day job, and I'm like, well, hot and ready pizza. It's $5, Tracy. That's a deal. I spent less.
This is your problem. It's all about the deals. That's what it is. It's not the food. It's just you cannot resist the deal.
$5.
I know.
How much do you think they make on a hot and ready pizza?
That's $5?
What do you think they clear on that?
3?
Wow.
Pizza's not very expensive to make.
Yeah, and I'm sure they aren't using the best ingredients in the world.
Well, you need flour, some water, salt, pepper, maybe pepper, I don't know. A little bit of tomato sauce, some cheese, you're good.
So it's a large pepperoni pizza. Like an hour drive. I figure I'll eat half of it. save the rest for later. I ate the whole damn pizza.
Mm-hmm.
I get home, and I'm supposed to record with you.
Yes.
And I feel so miserable because I just inhaled a large pepperoni pizza that I lay down, and for 2.5 hours, I'm in the fetal position.
So you food comed yourself.
Yes.
So this was a physical feeling of sickness, not mentally disgusted.
Right.
Okay.
I'm well past the mentally disgusted at myself for being a pig. That ship sailed a long time ago.
Okay. Well, why do I still hear about it so often?
So I get up, and I've got my computer desk here where I do the show, and I've got 2 computers set up because I want to start, incorporating audio clips with our recordings. So I'm sitting here, and I have a Mountain Lightning in my hand. You know what a Mountain Lightning is?
Is that some knockoff store brand?
It's a Walmart
Yep.
Mountain Dew.
What's it called?
Mountain Lightning.
Ah, because their fake Dr. Pepper is called Dr. Thunder, I believe.
Yes, you're right.
Oh, Thunder and Lightning.
So I go to take a drink, and the computer desk is way too small for 2 laptops, a mixer, a headphone splitter. Something has to give, and what had to give was the Mountain Lightning. I grab it, a cord gets tangled in with the Mountain Lightning. All of a sudden, I've got Mountain Lightning all over my lap, all over the floor, a little bit on my computer, but I have a computer cover, so it's no big deal. I jump up in the air. You've seen me, Tracy.
Yes.
I'm 44 years old. I'm 290 pounds. I shouldn't be jumping anywhere. I jump up in the air. My foot gets caught underneath the desk. I bump my computer. I'm pissed off. I clean up the pop. And then I get ready to go record with you. And my laptop's broken. The new laptop, a MacBook that I just bought 6 weeks ago, the keyboard won't work. And now I'm in full-blown panic. Because I don't like, even though I do it a lot, Tracy, I don't like disappointing you. So I'm like, oh shit, my keyboard doesn't work. How does this happen? I'm trying everything to get this keyboard to work. I'm up until 11:30 last night trying to get this keyboard to work. Can't get it to work. So I've had the computer for 6 weeks. It must have been when I bumped it. I did something. I don't know. And I'm like, oh shit. Well, I'm screwed. I still haven't recorded with Tracy for the Enough Already podcast. I'm debuting another podcast for BizPack Review called the News Grinch podcast that I'm supposed to record on Wednesday. This is what I'm thinking, Tuesday night. And I have no computer. Wake up today. I felt like I broke my foot. So I'm like, shit, I've got to go to the doctor. I've got to go to the Genius Bar all in one day. How is this going to work out? I swallow like 4 ibuprofen and I head to the Genius Bar. And I'll be damned, Tracy Connors, they gave me a new computer.
I told you that yesterday. They'll give you a new one.
I hate sounding like an Apple snob. I hate those people. But you really need to buy yourself an Apple computer. They're more expensive.
But break it while it's still in warranty.
Yes, that's true. But that's not the first time I've heard someone say, even when it's out of warranty, sometimes they're like, here you go. Meh.
Well, if you buy the Apple Care, which I've refused to do, but I had the same thing. I bought a refurb years ago and it just quit working. And so I took it to the store and I got a brand new one.
Yeah, but the refurb was a 2015.
Right. Yeah.
This is a 2016 brand new computer. And it's got a faster processor, but everything else is pretty much the same. But it works.
Certainly. Just don't bump into it.
So I'm not going to bump into it. So I'm on my way home and I got to stop at Hooters. I'm feeling good about myself.
Of course.
So I go to Hooters, get myself a dozen wings. Tracy, I could eat Hooters wings every single day. And no, it has nothing to do. Oh, they get it's the women. It has nothing to do with the freaking women.
They have good wings?
Yes.
Okay.
The breading is outstanding. They're greasy. You bite into it. You chew it. You don't even have to swallow. The only thing you do is you tilt your head back, and it'll slide down your throat.
Stop.
It's so good.
I don't eat chicken. I don't want to hear about eating chicken. Chickens are disgusting.
So then I get steak fries and queso again to go with the fries.
Good God.
So I eat like 7 of these wings. I could have been a pig, Tracy, and ate all 10. But I'm taking your advice, and I'm putting down the fork.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no fork involved in eating any of this food you've described.
So I boxed up my wings, the fries, and the queso, and I headed to the doctor. Went and got an x-ray. The good news, no broken foot.
Excellent.
The bad news, I may have a partially torn Achilles tendon on the other foot. So I get back here, and I'm frantically trying to set up this computer because I've got this other podcast I'm recording, and our guest this week is S.E. Cupp.
Mm-hmm.
Get everything together. We start, I'm recording with my co-host, Carmine Sabia from BizPack Review. We bring on SE, hang up the phone with SE. I look, it didn't record. I don't think, other than the computer, getting a free computer, nothing has gone right this week. But thankfully, she was gracious enough to come back and say, I'll do it again. So God bless her, and you can hear that over at bizpackreview.com. But so that was all done. And in a lot of ways, Tracy, I'm like Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
When
In
I'm
what
stressed,
ways?
when I'm stressed out, I turn to food. So
Okay.
I remembered after I got done with that, and I knew we had to record, I had a small window where I could polish off those wings and fries.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran downstairs, polished off the wings and fries, but then realized I still had, again, just like when you run out of, they don't give you enough chips with the queso, I still had leftover queso. Now, what would you do, Tracy Connors, in that situation? Would you take the queso and throw it out?
Yes. I wouldn't have probably eaten any of that stuff to begin with. But if I had had extra queso left over, I would throw it away.
Well, I spread it on bread and had a queso sandwich before we started the show. Why am I fat?
I don't know. I'm not picking up any clues as to why that's going on.
What a country. You know who would not want me to be doing this in his country?
Well, you wouldn't be allowed to do it in his country. It wouldn't even be possible.
In his America. Because I'd be waiting in lines for food. It's a good diet plan. Socialism. Bernie Sanders. Should we talk about Bernie Sanders?
And his love of food lines?
Yes. Should I play the clip? Where did you find this clip?
Please. I think it was something that Michael Moynihan had dug up. I saw a longer version of this clip where he was on Stossel and he had dug into Bernie Sanders' past and found this interview. And I had seen portions of it before where he's talking about how awesome the Castros are and how great the Sandinistas are. And they give their people health care and everybody's literate, even though they only have 3 books to read. But later in the interview, Moynihan actually caught him saying that, like, oh, breadlines, people in the West think that's a bad thing. Yeah, it is. It sucks.
There's nothing wrong with waiting for bread.
No, everybody should have to wait.
All right, let me play the clip. This is Bernie Sanders.
And I think this is from like 85 or 86.
Oh, to be fair.
Yeah.
And in this clip, it's, like you said, 85, 86. He still looks like he's about 90 years old.
Yeah, he just has a little more hair. It's still white, though.
Right. Okay, this is Bernie Sanders praising bread lines, and food rationing.
You know, it's funny, sometimes American journalists talk about how bad a country is because people are lining up for food. That's a good thing. In other countries, people don't line up for food. The rich get the food and the poor starve to death. You know, it's funny, sometimes American journalists talk about how bad a country is because people are lining up for food. That's a good thing. In other countries, people don't line up for food. The rich get the food and the poor starve to death.
Right.
Of course. That's exactly how it works.
This is what you're voting for.
Where the rich just hoard food and people are lying in the streets dying. The man is out of his mind.
This is trickle-down idiocy.
Well, it's even worse than that. But before we move on to how stupid he is and how he's revealed himself to be a charlatan, like I always thought he was a shallow thinker, but I thought he'd given his shallow thoughts just a little bit of time and delved into where these things go, but he hasn't. But this breadline thing just cracks me the hell up. As if there are people in America that are starving. We're the fattest country on earth.
I think I just demonstrated that in the first 15 minutes of the show.
Yeah, you did. Look, you ate 6,000 calories and you spent $8.75. And yes, there was a line because it was the movie theater. But it wasn't like you had a little ration book.
Right.
You had to wait in line all day, which you can only do if you're unemployed, which should have been a light bulb goes off in his head. Then we're looking at Venezuela, and you notice that has gone completely out of our news.
Yes.
Right? It was around for a little while. It's still going on. You can follow some people on Twitter, and they're showing pictures from the supermarkets there. There's no food on the shelves.
That's a good thing.
Well, yeah, you wait in a line for 6-7 hours to get into the supermarket to find out they don't have the stuff you need.
It makes you appreciate food more.
Right.
You won't be throwing it away.
No, that place was such a disaster. And I think I've told the story about going to McDonald's there like 6 or 7 times. And you would have had a heart attack if you walked into McDonald's. And, I go to McDonald's once every like 4 or 5 years. And I went because we were homesick. And it's like, what do you do when you're homesick as an American in a foreign country? You go to McDonald's.
That's right.
And then they tell you, oh, there's no French fries. What? Yeah, we're out of French fries. Excuse me? Like, how is that even They're just not here. Can I get a Coke? Nope, no Coke. What do you have? I think they had chicken or something.
Can you imagine me walking into the movie theater and them saying, we have no popcorn?
No.
None.
That would never happen. But you've got all these little micromanaging fools. And I want to look up the name of this so I get it right. There's a guy that makes BBC docs. Adam Curtis, I think his name is. Yeah, Adam Curtis.
Any relation to Bill Curtis?
I don't know who that is, so I'm going to say no. And you can look, let me make sure I found his site. I think I have. Yeah, it's called thoughtmaybe.com. And on there you can watch all of his docs. And they're really weirdly put together. It's he's got an interesting way of mixing storylines and old footage and new footage. And he did a series called All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace. And which is a weird title, right?
Yeah.
And each one of them is like a 6-part series. So everything has an individual topic. Oh, sorry if you can hear that. So that's the overarching name of this series, which is 6 episodes long, each one about an hour. And I think it was one of them that I watched, and I can't remember which one in the series, but they dealt with the Soviets when Stalin came into power and how they tried to organize their economy. And he got it in his head that everybody needed to be engineers. So they had an entire generation where almost everybody was forced to study engineering.
Okay.
And then they sent a team of scientists over here to study Gary, Indiana, of all places, knowing what we know now about Gary, Indiana.
It's a beautiful place to build a summer home.
Right. It's a shithole. The only good things that came out of that were Michael Jackson and Keira Davis and Mark Davis. But they weren't born there, I don't think. Anyway, so they sent these guys over to study this town because it was built around industry and they wanted to mirror that. So somewhere in Russia, there's a mirror image of Gary, Indiana.
Okay.
And this progressed later to show you like how they took this like scientific control to the maximum level. And an economy that's a planned economy more so than ours, when you don't have a market that determines things, you have to have bureaucrats to do that. So they've got all these interviews with the bureaucrats that ran the supply side of everything.
Yeah.
So they tried to estimate like how many toothbrushes would need to be manufactured. And they just sat in this room full of these giant 3-ring binders, full to capacity, thousands of them. And it accounted for every single product on the market.
Oh my God.
And they had numbers on everything, where they came from. And then they would also make incorrect assumptions about who would want what and how much. So it just became a disaster. And these guys just looked completely frazzled. Like, this is Bernie Sanders' idea of an ideal economy, where they're just rooms full of nerds crunching numbers to figure out how many toothbrushes people are going to want, what style jeans. It was insane to see that, to think that they actually had to have an entire division in their government dedicated to this, and they still couldn't do it right.
Of course not.
No, that's why you walk into a Venezuelan McDonald's and there are no French fries.
Can I tell you a quick story about my one and only trip to Gary, Indiana?
Please.
I went to Gary, Indiana to go to the Trump Casino. Spent the night there. And as I was driving in to the casino, you get off the highway. It's probably about a 1.5 mile drive from the highway to the casino. And I thought I was driving through Baghdad. I swear to you, burned out buildings. I'm driving and I'm looking in the median, assuming at some point I'm going to see a 45-foot statue of Saddam Hussein waving me in. It was the most nobody on the streets, the most bizarre experience I've had in a long time, driving through Gary, Indiana, and there's just nothing there. Nothing. And then you drive and there's the casino in the middle of nowhere, by the river, by water, and it floats, and that's weird too. Indiana has this whole, at least they used to, where the casinos here, most of them, the ones that aren't affiliated with horse race tracks, had to actually be on a riverboat, and the riverboat would have to set sail for a while.
Oh, sure. It's get around laws, right?
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. I mean, just add to the list of stupid laws they have in Indiana, along with not being able to buy a 6-pack of beer on a Sunday in Indiana. But Gary, Indiana is what happens when you let people like Bernie Sanders run a town.
Sure.
That's what it turns into.
It's unbelievable. And apparently Vermont is like Bernie Sanders' dream come true. I had no idea how powerful the left is in Vermont. And I was listening to the Tom Woods program the other day, and he had on a guy from the Ethan Allen Institute. And they're a right-wing They're a free market think tank up in Vermont. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that Vermont is what Bernie Sanders wants. 100%. Like, he's so influenced politics there that it's crazy. And if you remember, I think it was last year or the year before, where they tried to institute single payer. Do you remember this? And it collapsed.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah. The state wanted to go single payer. And they couldn't get it off the ground because they figured it was going to cost them $2 billion a year to run it. And I think this guy said that their annual budget is $500 million.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. But he's like, they've got progressive, they've got a big tax, a state income tax, but they also have progressive property taxes. So your property tax is tied to how much you make.
What?
Yes.
It's not based on the value of the property?
No, that's what he was explaining. I mean, it's possible that I misheard this, but I'm fairly certain that he said we have a progressive property tax.
I've never heard of that before.
Neither have I. But it's fascinating. They only have a population of 600,000 people in that state. And these morons have managed to put through like all this crap, and they're saying they're trying to fight back, and they have this institute existed since '93, I believe. And they've made some progress, but they're like, it's really, he said, if people would move there, you could get voted into their state legislature with swaying like 150 people in your district. It's not that hard. And that's how Bernie Sanders made his way all the way to the Senate. It wasn't too difficult to win a seat, step up and up and up from Burlington to the Congress. And he said the only reason he won his first congressional race is because the Republican that held that seat took some anti-Second Amendment stance. And even though there are a bunch of weirdo hippies up there, they're all into their guns. So he got thrown out. And everybody thought, oh, we'll just let this go. And he'll sit there. We'll give it to Bernie for 2 years, and then we'll put in another Republican. But nope, Bernie stayed. And now he could beat Hillary like he did yesterday. Oh my God. It kills me. Absolutely.
And she is so... Look, you need to, as a candidate, try to put a positive spin on a shit sandwich.
She's not look on the bright side kind of gal, though.
Are you saying she's not a glasses half full kind of gal? Is that what you're saying?
She's like, my glass is half empty. That means where the hell is my waiter?
She came out on Wednesday and said that the youth of America really likes her. I'm paraphrasing. I believe I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think that the youth vote went for Bernie in Vermont in Wisconsin by something ridiculous like 80-16.
I believe it.
But young people love Hillary. Young people don't love Hillary because it's like what you said the other day. They know what Google is and they use it.
Yeah.
And she's got a long track record of being a horrible, horrible person.
And it's on camera too.
Yes.
It's on the YouTubes. So, and she snapped at that person at her rally the other day. And that was quintessential Hillary. She went from 0 to bitch in 0.2 seconds. Oh, I love it. And she's got to now compete in her fake home state against Bernie Sanders in his real home state.
And she's way ahead in the polls.
Oh, not in New York.
She's not. Last I checked, she was up like 15, 20 points.
Oh, no, I think it's closing.
Hang
on, I got RPC up. But I wanted to give you so last night, Bernie beat her by 14 percentage points.
Oh, God.
In Wisconsin.
Did she walk away with more delegates in Wisconsin than he did again?
Well, it's interesting. I was watching, With All Due Respect, with John Heilman and Mark Halperin, which is a Bloomberg show, but now it's on MSNBC, so I don't really understand. Right before I got on with you, and they had on the scroll on the bottom, it said that Hillary came out of it with 45 delegates and Bernie came out of it with 47. But on Real Clear Politics, they're saying it's actually 36-47. But still, it is unbelievable. They're saying she right now has 469 of the 712 superdelegates already committed to her. He's got 31.
Ugh.
But the delegate count, right? Oh, yeah. The delegate count now, including them, she's at 1749 and he's at 1061.
So you pulled those 400 and some superdelegates away from her. And she's only up by 300. And he's won, the last 6 states?
Yes.
Can you imagine any other candidate who had won 6 states in a row? They would just be talking nonstop about his momentum.
Yeah.
But they can't do that with Hillary.
No, and it's funny because now the left is getting a taste of media bias.
Yes.
And it's unbelievable. And I don't know if you saw it because it didn't get much coverage. I only saw it because it was on Twitter. A bunch of Bernie bots went down and protested outside of the CNN offices in Los Angeles.
Really?
They had Occupy CNN was trending over the weekend. And I'm like, what is this all about? Well, they're angry that they're not giving him screen time, I guess, on CNN. And it's interesting to watch MSNBC, which is blatantly partisan, as we all know.
Right.
But I don't see anybody on that channel that's a Bernie person. There's not a split like on Fox where you can see that there's Trump people and there's never Trump people. And they're pretty open and they fight. MSNBC is totally in the tank for Hillary. Even though Bernie seems to be their ideal and what they really want, they're not interested in it.
Isn't that simply amazing?
It's bizarre.
It just shows you, at the end of the day, they are much more concerned with identity politics as opposed to principles. Because
yeah, well, I also wonder too if they're into the long game version. It's like this is like revolutionary socialism versus Fabian socialism, which has been a fight that's started in the early 20th century. And Bernie represents revolutionary change, or at least he claims to. And these guys are like, nope, slow and steady. Look at us. We're making progress.
But you got some people, and I haven't checked. Is Lawrence O'Donnell still a part of the MSNBC family?
I believe he is.
I mean, he has said on several occasions that he's a full-blown socialist.
Well, that's not the distinction. The distinction is the way of fighting.
I understand that. But it just seems to me that you would think that these people, I mean, this guy is an unapologetic socialist.
Mm-hmm. But he's a democratic socialist.
Of course.
Please put that modifier in front. It makes all the difference.
Bread lines.
As long as 51% of the people want bread lines, we will have bread lines.
You would think, and I understand your point. Listen, we've been incrementally been walking towards socialism now for 50 years.
Oh, try almost 100.
Well,
actually, at 100, yeah.
Yeah, you go back to Social Security and, even before that.
Well, you go back to Woodrow Wilson, the Federal Reserve, all that kind of stuff. The IRS, the invention of the income tax, which didn't exist prior to the 16th Amendment.
But it just is surprising to me that you have these bombastic characters on MSNBC between Lawrence O'Donnell and Chris Matthews and
Chris Matthews was up in arms about this. Don't you remember months ago when he's like challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz to differentiate Democrats from socialists?
Right. And
he was like adamant about there being a distinction, and yet none could be produced.
It's just surprising to me that you're right. I have not heard of one person who on MSNBC, one of the main talking heads, who is a full-blown cheerleader for Bernie Sanders.
No, and even in the left-wing media sphere, there isn't on, the blogs. Maybe the Coast is, but Huffington Post is Hillary. Vox is even Hillary. They're making fun of Sanders in this terrible interview he gave to the editorial board, I think it was, over at the New York Daily News, where he totally shows that he knows absolutely nothing about what he's talking about.
He's going to break up the big banks. That's what he's going to do, Tracy.
Did you read the article or no?
No.
Because they pushed him on that. That's exactly what they said. They said, okay, so you keep saying you're going to do this. How are you going to do that?
We're going to do it.
What authority do you have? He's like, well, I don't know. We get people in here to look at it. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? Like, this man has been saying this stuff for 40 years. He has no plan?
Well, he's never been challenged on it.
Right, but I mean, I don't know.
Oh, you mean I have to come up with a good answer?
Right. As a self-respecting person that has opinions and puts them out there, I try to have thought them through a bit and be like, okay, if I say this, then what are people likely to ask me about this? So that interview is really, really long, but subsequently a bunch of other outlets have done pieces about it, including like Vox trashing him and other left-wing sites just being like, oh my God, what a dummy. But the Washington Post did a great little summary piece where it's called The 9 Things Bernie Sanders Should Have Known About, but he didn't. And so they talk about breaking up the banks. So this is what the New York Daily News says. Let's assume you're correct on this point about breaking up the banks. How do you go about it? This is what he says. How do I go about doing it? How do you go about having legislation passed or giving authority to the Secretary of Treasury to determine under Dodd-Frank that these banks are in danger to the economy over the problem of too big to fail? So the Daily News says, but do you think the Fed now has that authority? Here's Sanders. Well, I don't know if the Fed has it, but I think the administration can have it. Daily News, how? Does the president turn to JP Morgan Chase or have the Treasury turn to any of those banks and say you must do X, Y, and Z? Sanders. Well, you do have the authority under Dodd-Frank legislation to do that, make that determination. The Daily News, do you just by Federal Reserve fiat you do? Sanders, well, yeah, I believe you do. What? What do you mean? You have no clue. You have absolutely no idea how to go about doing this. And yet every day you're out there saying, we're going to do this. This is, to me, this is the same as Trump and the Mexicans are going to pay for the wall.
Right.
But he's actually said like 4 different ways that he would go about trying to leverage that wall payment. You know, it's cutting off remittances or just putting it to them and saying, we're not buying your shit until you build the wall, which is the other option. Those are 2 perfectly rational ways to go about doing this.
I don't understand what he thinks he could do. Does he think he can pressure Chase to turn into like almost a reverse AT&T, the old Ma Bell days where there were different areas of the country and they'll become just break off into Chase is now 7 different banks. And he thinks
right,
he could...
as if that makes any difference too. Well, and so they asked him, the second one of the 9 was the legal implications of doing this, right? So I'll skip some of it, but he did say at one point, okay, so the Daily News says, this does depend on how you do it, I believe. And I'm a little bit confused because just a few years ago you said the president would have the authority to order it. And he goes, no, I didn't say that. I did not say we would order. The president is not a dictator. Okay. Yeah, so the Daily News says, okay, then we leave it to J.P. Morgan Chase or the others to figure out how to break themselves up. I'm not quite, you don't know, you would determine is that if a bank is too big to fail, it is too big to exist. Then you have the Secretary of the Treasury and some people who know a lot about this making that determination. So you see, this is already like, we're going to have the experts, like the guys with the thick spiral-bound books full of bullshit. And they're going to determine is that if Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan Chase is too big to fail, yes, they will be broken up.
So will they be experts that have never been in the banking industry, just like we did with Obamacare, where we had a bunch of people that knew next to nothing about healthcare decide to write a healthcare law that's completely shit-canned our healthcare system?
Well, you know he's not going to have anybody in the bank from the banking industry in his administration.
Of course, I can't do that.
No, he would probably get like Robert Reich in there to help him. But this is the follow-up. I love this. Okay, so the New York Daily News says, okay, you saw, I guess, what happened with Metropolitan Life. There was an attempt to bring them under financial regulatory scheme, and the court said no. So what does that presage? Is that how you say that word? Presage for your program?
Uh-huh.
So basically, like, what does that mean about your program? Like, what can we extrapolate from what happened with there? And he said, Sanders says, that's something I've not studied, honestly. The legal implications of that. What do you do all day, dude? You're a legislator. So I had posted the full long thing on my Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, I have segregated everybody because people can't behave
right
or act rationally. So I have a list that I share stuff to that's my Republicans and libertarians and liberals that won't freak out. So I posted this on there and I just said, this is so funny to me. Because this man has been saying this shit for 40 years. And then when somebody asks him a question, he has no answer. So one of my Bernie bros jumps in there and was like, I think he did a great job. Like, he can't know everything about everything. He's just going to hire a bunch of experts. And this is insane. This is a legislator that's telling us he doesn't know about what laws exist already. This would be a baker telling me, I don't know what goes into a cake. You're an idiot. This man has been exposed as a charlatan, and yet you're still going to do this. And then somebody jumped in and said, this is Trumpian. And I was like, exactly. Except Trump said he's going to how he's going to get Mexico to pay for the wall.
Well, and here's the thing, too. This isn't a situation like the nuclear triad.
No.
Where they pull the gotcha question out of their ass and throw it at people. And the people on our side who hate Trump are mocking him
for not being a policy wonk.
Yeah, and also while they're mocking him about not knowing about the nuclear triad, they're Googling nuclear triad.
Right. No, this is one of his major talking points.
Yes, this is a major plank of his campaign.
Well, then question 3 of the 9 that he should have known, prosecuting Wall Street executives. So they said, okay, you keep talking about this stuff, but do you have a sense that there's a particular statute or statutes that a prosecutor could or should have invoked to bring indictments? He says, yeah, I suspect there is, yes. You believe that? But do you know? Sanders, I believe that this is the case. I do have them in front of me. Do I have them in front of me now? Legal statutes? No, I don't. But if yeah, that's what I believe, yeah. When a company pays $5 billion fine for doing something that's illegal, yeah, I think we can bring charges. Like, What? Doesn't he have a staff? I'm serious.
But look, he knows this is probably the first time in the 25 years he's been talking about stuff like this that he's actually been challenged on it by the mainstream media. And it doesn't matter. Like you said, anybody that supports Bernie is going to look at that and go, I think he did a great job.
Yes, and that's exactly what happened. I saw a bunch of people running interference for him. I think he did great. What? How can we read the same exact thing? And you think this man has more depth to his policy proposals than Donald Trump and I will make Mexicans pay for the wall? There's really no difference. Except Trump came out with answers.
Well, look, last night, one of the exit poll questions for Democrats was, what is your top issue? 30% or around 30% said the number one issue that they're most passionate about is income inequality.
Well, this is because they believe the nonsense about the breadlines are good things.
Yes.
Because that means the rich can't hoard all the food.
It's fascinating to watch a political party whine and bitch about income inequality when their front runner made 6 figures for a 20-minute speech for Goldman Sachs.
Well, I was reading, speaking of that, I read a Judicial Watch piece today called The Clinton Shell Game.
Uh-huh.
And it's about, all the stuff that the Clinton Foundation was doing, and they spun off the Clinton Global Initiative, which was different, and it's it's a shell game. And they talked about, do you know how much money they've made?
Oh, they have to be close to billionaires.
Oh, multiply that by 3.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So they said the Washington Post found out that in their 40 years of public life, the Clintons have raked in about $3 billion.
They have really changed what an ex-president is now.
Oh, absolutely.
You can expect Barack Obama to be a billionaire in 15 years as well.
He's probably already one.
Very well.
For all
could
we
be.
know.
Very well could be.
That's the one thing about the Panama Papers that I saw Bernie idiots sharing too. Apparently Bernie said something years ago about this Panama thing is going to be a tax haven and all this stuff. And then it's going to be taken advantage of by corporations. And so far, there's not been a single American named in this, right? The politicians that got caught up in this, the prime minister of Iceland's already had to resign.
I'm sure Putin will resign too over this, right?
No, well, Putin's not even directly tied to it. It's like...
Oh, I thought that he was.
Well, kind of. But like there's 2 or 3 degrees of separation between him. It's probably him. It probably is. But when you read the stuff about these, they keep saying there's nothing really illegal about this.
Right.
So it's just a big scandal that how much money these people have, and they build these shell corporations to stash it in. But who cares? Socialist dictators do this crap all the time. They want to hide how much money they have. But the anger point on the left seems to be that this is money that should have been taxed.
Of course.
So they're effectively stealing from people by not giving it over in taxes. And they're furious about this. But I love it. Bernie people are like slamming this point home. Like, oh my God, he was such a genius. He totally called this. And yet there's not a single American name or corporation that's caught up in this so far. So good for Bernie. Nostradumbass over there.
It's all a bunch of Europeans who have been pushing this kind of, thinking now for
Europeans
decades.
And South Americans. The Argentinian president's caught up in it. The FIFA soccer dudes are caught up in it.
Oh, FIFA is one of the biggest. They're a bunch of crooks.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have people had to resign from FIFA over scandals? Ranging from I believe what was just a few years ago, getting bribed to award a World Cup somewhere.
Wasn't it
was it Brazil?
I don't know if it was Brazil. I thought that they had one in the Middle East somewhere. It was like the United Arab Emirates or Qatar or one of those. I feel like one of those countries, and both of them are caught up in this too. I don't really understand why those guys and like the Saudi royal family, why they need to hide their money.
Right.
Well, it's just unbelievable to me that these Bernie people can't put this all together. If you're going to raise taxes to an astronomical level, people are going to put their money elsewhere.
And there's always going to be somewhere that will accept that money.
And they keep bitching about these American corporations that have moved their operations overseas so they don't have to pay taxes, and they want all that money to come back. Just like idiots. Do you not get this? What part of they're not in America anymore doesn't click with you? So, I mean, what makes them an American company? They were founded by Americans, and then you chase them out with 35% corporate tax? You're fools. And they don't understand that when you tax products, when you tax a company, what do? Do they pay that tax, or do they just jack the prices up to break even?
Corporations don't pay taxes.
Of course not. They don't. And then Bernie has the balls to go and bitch about GE not paying any taxes, and GE gives so much damn money to the Democrats. It's not even funny. They're like the leading edge of all the green bullshit tech, too.
Yeah.
So they're being subsidized out the butt, but we have to hear about all the oil companies and them spending money spreading climate propaganda. And it's like a fraction. It's like a tenth of the money that gets spent on the other side.
As a libertarian, would you ever take advantage of any kind of, because this is a catch-22, you know, you're against all taxes for the most part, correct?
Yeah, all of them.
So if you can get a tax break, but you have to invest in some sort of green energy to be taxed less, do you do it?
Well, if it's monetarily efficient. Like I think I told you I watched Bill Nye was on the Anthony Cumia show with who was that? I told you about this, right? Nick DiPaolo.
Yes.
And Nick DiPaolo was just like, look, this, you know, people would buy this tech if it was efficient, if it was cost efficient and effective, right? You don't need to subsidize this green stuff. And Bill Nye then launched into, well, I just want to tell you guys that I put solar panels on my house in Los Angeles. And DePaulo's like, how much did that cost? And he's like, well, it costs about the same as a mid-sized car. So he wouldn't give you a dollar amount, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking, okay, he's talking anywhere between 15 grand and 30 grand, depending on what Bill Nye counts as a mid-sized car.
Oh, a mid-sized car? Are you talking a Kia or a Cadillac?
Right. And so, okay, 15 to 30 grand. And he's like, after 10 years, you paid for it. No, that's not cost efficient to me. So even if I was getting a subsidy to pay for a portion of it, you'd have to figure out how many years it takes to make it worth it. And do I want to invest in something like that? And with solar panels on your roof, it's not like it's portable easily. Can't be like, I'm moving, rip up the solar panels, kids. It's a pain in the butt. So no, it's like they give you, they incentivize green cars too, don't they?
Yes, they do. You can buy a Chevy Volt or a Prius or something, and you get a tax break. But here's the deal: when you look at something like a Prius, or let's go with a hybrid car, a generic hybrid car. Won't say a Prius. In a lot of ways, you have to drive that car for 8 years for the premium in price you're paying versus, say, Chevy has a Cobalt. Okay, which I think gets like 36 miles to the gallon or something like that.
Sure.
The difference between the gas savings that you get from the hybrid, you have to hold on to that car forever before you break even.
Right. So if there was a green technology that would save me money, then yeah, I would do it. That's how the market works.
Yeah.
I don't want to be subsidized into doing it.
And the other thing too is, you know, you're starting to see these pop up because, like you said, it's subsidized. People getting solar panels for their homes. I saw a few up in Michigan where the whole side of a house is a solar panel.
Oh, and it's hideous, right?
Exactly, it's hideous. I don't know how anyone could drive home, see that on the side of their house, and think, oh, it's beautiful. I'm so glad I spent $285,000 on this beautiful 2,500 square foot 2-story home, and the whole side of it looks like a fucking mirror.
And it's melting my dog.
No bird can fly by the side of your house because it'll explode. But damn it, the government's helping you put that up there.
Yes, it is.
And what it really is not only that, but you can show all of your neighbors that you care about the planet.
That's what it is.
And really, Tracy, isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, it's all about virtue signaling with your purchases. It is. That's why people bought a Prius. A Prius is hideous. Like, they didn't even try to make that a nice looking car.
What kills me are the people, and I've got a friend who has a friend that is a soccer mom, and she's very much into her carbon footprint and her family's effect on the planet. And so 3 kids,
well,
driving a Prius.
Mm-hmm.
And she finally, and this woman is probably about 5'10".
Okay.
So squeezing yourself into a Prius and then dragging 3 kids around in a Prius has to be a complete fucking nightmare. And the only reason you're doing it is to show everybody else that you care. So finally, she broke down and got a minivan.
Mm-hmm.
And she admitted it on social media the other day on Facebook. Okay, I'll admit it. This is wonderful. And she took a picture of all the legroom she had in the minivan. And I can't help but think to myself, was it really worth, for the 3, 4, 5 years you were driving that Prius and making yourself completely miserable, and your kids are miserable because they got to cram in the back of that piece of shit Prius? Is it really worth it? The smug level, the whole South Park. Is it really worth it to go through all that misery just to be able to look at somebody else in their SUV at the traffic light and be able to rub it? You just don't care about the planet. You just don't care. I do. I drive a Prius. Ugh. Moron.
Oh, it's amazing to me that people can believe that their own actions would have an impact on the entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's just moronic thinking.
Well, and the other thing, we all want clean water. We all want clean air. I mean, nobody they like to take the argument and frame it in a way that if you think that these people are morons for, living their lives this way, that means you hate the environment. You want dirty air. You want dirty water. Look, none of my conservative friends are running around throwing their car batteries in the river to get rid of them.
No.
Everybody wants a clean planet, but to behave in a way like that, in a manner that, geez, I can't drive just a normal car. I'm really gonna have an effect on the planet if I drive a hybrid. Now I'm really doing something. No, you're not. Stop it.
No.
Take a
you're
nap.
Not. But you can. I don't have any problem if they want to be idiots.
Sure.
Just don't force me to play your stupid games with you.
But then they take it a step further and they lobby people like Bernie Sanders to get the government to subsidize these vehicles. On top of the fact you've got, the companies like GE and, companies that build these cars also lobbying the federal government.
Oh, sure.
It's a big fucking mess.
Right. Well, and they've destroyed cars with the CAFE standards and the EPA regs.
Look, you want to really have an honest conversation as to why General Motors and Chrysler went bankrupt and not just blame it on the UAW. The UAW has to take some blame for negotiating fat contracts and really holding government or the bigwigs at General Motors holding a gun to their heads to get these fat contracts that eventually led to their costs being too high. But government intervention, especially via CAFE standards, they're killing the domestic auto industry. The restrictions that they have set in place that are supposed to take effect here in 10, 15 years, you're making these companies produce cars that nobody nobody wants to drive other than the person I was just talking about. That's, worried about the carbon footprint.
Right.
And the main the cars that are in the domestic auto industry's wheelhouse, SUVs, pickup trucks. Those aren't going to get 55 miles to the gallon.
No, unless you make them out of cardboard.
Right. And that's the other thing. These companies these cars are because the metal is thinner, they're doing everything they can to take weight off the vehicle. They're less safe. And it's all because of CAFE standards. CAFE standards are a huge reason why Chrysler, General Motors, and Ford almost went bankrupt.
Well,
remember
and they're
Geo?
Oh yeah.
Nobody drove Geos.
I told you one of my roommates had one.
I had one at one point. I had a Geo.
Yeah, they're a good
Storm.
car for like a 16-year-old.
Right. But they had to build a ton of these little small cars like a Geo Metro and a Chevy Cavalier to make up for the fact that they were building huge Suburbans and Tahoes, cars that people wanted. They were building, at one point, they were building cars at a loss. These small cars. And some of that, of course, that's a problem for, because of bloated contracts. But they shouldn't be forced to build those cars to begin with. It should all be based on market forces and not the federal government coming in and telling auto manufacturers what the miles per gallon should be on a vehicle. Let the market determine that.
Absolutely. It's like those Russian bureaucrats. Oh, and I had the wrong series. That was from a series of his called Pandora's Box. It was episode 1, Engineers. So I would definitely say check that out. But they're trying to kill Volkswagen.
Yep.
Over their emission thing. And those same cars pass the emission standards in Europe. And now because of that, they're keeping out other diesel engine cars. Other companies don't want to bring in their diesel versions.
And this is, taking the conversation to somewhere else. But I am floored that there are states that you have to take your vehicle every year to get it inspected.
Yeah, I have to do that.
I that would drive me nuts.
Well, I have to get it. There's an inspection. There's an emission test as well, and that's county by county. Because when I was going to Penn State and living up there, I didn't have to do emissions for some reason. It didn't make any sense to me. I had to do it here, but not 3 hours away. Who knows? But I also have to pay registration every year. I don't know if you have to do that.
Yes, I mean that's one thing, but to have to take it somewhere, and you're not. It's good that you aren't taking it to some. You could take it to a government authorized private shop, right?
Oh yeah, my mechanic is an authorized.
How ridiculous is it? You get a good relationship with your mechanic, you can practically get away with. What can you get away with? You can get away with not following the government standards if you got a mechanic who's a buddy, right?
I do it every year.
It's so ridiculous.
It is, but that's you have to, and they have to have your proof of insurance and all that stuff. So every year they're checking that. Like I can't pass inspection unless my mechanic sees my insurance.
Wow. Well, and that's understandable. Look, I got hit a few years ago, head on, going 60 miles an hour by a guy, and he didn't have insurance.
Wait, what? I thought you had to have.
Right? It's the law.
People don't follow laws.
Stunning, right? And what drives me nuts, look, we have all, for the most part, been there as far as, you either don't go to college, you move out of your parents' house, you're struggling, or you just get out of college, there's not a lot of money. So you got to cut corners. But when a guy who's driving a 2001 Saturn plows into me and he is panicking because he doesn't have insurance and he's on his cell phone. I mean, how much does PLPD cost on a 2001 Saturn? It's not a lot of money.
No.
And you need to prioritize. Should I have car insurance or should I have a cell phone? Yeah. I would prefer to have both. So I would figure out a way to make more money to be able to pay for both. But if you have to make a sacrifice, I would tend to lean towards the car insurance over a cell phone.
Yeah. I'm sure he's also buying other things he could have done without.
Probably.
This is like you with your $8.75 popcorn
What a bargain!
and no Netflix.
Well, I already have Amazon Prime.
Two totally different things.
But Tracy, why do you want me sitting in front of a television? I'm just gonna eat more.
No, you seem to only eat in the car.
Well, that is true.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a meal in a 2004 Pontiac Vibe? It's exquisite.
I can't say that I have.
The ambiance is stellar.
I'm telling you, I drive a stick. I don't eat that much in the car. Only on highway trips.
No, you really do a good job of trying to, to stay healthy. You eat right. You do yoga. I tried yoga once, and that was, I'm not very bendy at 44 and fat.
Well, you work up to the bendy.
Oh.
But you also have to it's cutting calories.
Yeah,
at one point I weighed about 60 pounds more than I do now, and it's no big secret.
Well, I just drank something that it appears to be calorie free.
Water?
Oh no, it's my daughters love this stuff. It's called Clear American Ice.
Okay.
And this is a cherry lemonade, 0 calories. Look at that.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it actually was pretty good.
Decent mixer.
It would be.
I only drink lemonade when there's vodka involved.
This was cherry lemonade, so
that would still work.
It'd be as good as that cherry vodka I got you back up in.
Ooh, I didn't have a single sip of it, but you enjoyed it, I heard.
Yeah, I polished it off. Desperate, it was 2:00 in the morning, and desperate times called for desperate measures.
That's true. Well, we've got nothing to really wildly speculate about this upcoming week, but the week after is the New York primary. And I did pull up the polls while we were chatting. Hillary, in the most recent polling, which is CBS YouGov from March 29th through April 1st, only has Hillary up by 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is supposed to be, I keep hearing from the Hillary apologists that now the map is going to be much more friendly to Hillary Clinton, which astounds me that New York will be friendlier to Hillary Clinton than Bernie Sanders. But then you've got Pennsylvania coming up, and I'm still confused about the delegate situation in Pennsylvania because, Fox News, and maybe I didn't hear things correctly, but they were making it sound like many of the delegates in Pennsylvania are free agents no matter how the vote goes in Pennsylvania on the Republican side. But you tell me, you live there.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the case. We get 3 per congressional district, I believe. And then in addition to that, there are, I think, 3 from the state. So it's like the state party chair, and then a statewide committee man and a statewide committee woman or something like that. But I think everybody's bound on the first ballot, I believe, to whoever won the state. And then after that, they're free agents. But
this is going to be such a shit show in Cleveland. It's going to be so fun to watch.
Well, it's going to be back-to-back shit shows. I think Philadelphia is I think you agree with me. Philadelphia is going to be worse.
It's going to be violent in Philadelphia.
Oh, 100%.
And
we're lucky that where it's taking place, I believe it's happening either, I think it's where the Flyers and the Sixers play.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's where it usually is.
Well,
the basketball and hockey arenas where they usually have these things.
And that's not downtown. So that's kind of like sequestered off in the far south of the city.
Well, and you're going to see a situation where this is going to be very interesting, because I saw a piece last week saying that cab drivers and Uber drivers were going to boycott during convention week in Philadelphia. So if you've got a bunch of people staying downtown,
well, there's a train.
Oh, there's a train.
We have a subway. It only runs, there's one east-west line and one north-south line.
Yeah, but if you have no cabs or Ubers, during those, and every, 20,000 people are riding the train.
Oh, well.
It's going to be a shit show, isn't it?
Yeah, and like I said, the east-west line and the north-south line, and the only way to get to the stadium is to take the east-west line, and it just runs straight. It's just a straight line up Broad Street, which if you'll remember when you were here downtown at City Hall where you stayed, that's Broad Street.
Mm-hmm.
So just imagine taking that all the way out.
Ugh.
So you would have to come to there, is what I'm saying, to get to the stadium. Or no, wait a minute. No, it's north-south, so it's the other way. But yeah.
Public
whatever.
transportation is a complete nightmare to begin with.
Oh, it sucks. And it's funny, our buddy Michael Walsh was trying to get me to come down to DC because he's got some events there. And he was like, just hop on the train. And I said, I don't take public transportation. And wouldn't you know, there was an Amtrak accident. I don't know if you heard about it, just south of Philadelphia over the weekend. Some idiot left like a backhoe on the tracks.
Left what?
A backhoe. You know what those are?
What?
Yeah.
Who's backhoeing by a train track?
Workers. Amtrak workers. I believe it was.
Oh, come on.
I'm serious. They're the ones that it was like two people that work for Amtrak were killed in the crash. They were out on the tracks, I think.
Wow.
I've never understood, unless you fall off a platform or your car stalls out, you have to be a dumbass to get hit by a train.
I don't understand how, and you know, by the way, to anybody listening out there from the NSA, I am not a terrorist. I have no interest in killing innocent Americans. But I've never understood, you can't guard all that train track.
No, absolutely not.
I'm stunned that there has not been some sort of bomb placed on or by a railroad track, because I remember seeing movies from like the 1920s where there'd be some guy wearing a cape and he'd have a mustache that he'd play with right before he would set the bomb off as the train was coming near the bridge. How has that not happened around here?
I don't know. I don't know. It's happened in Europe at Underground.
Oh.
You know, there were like the London tube bombings.
Yeah.
But they make much more use of public transportation than we do here. So maybe that's why.
Well,
and
I mean,
we
that
do
whole
a good
New
enough
York,
job of destroying it ourselves.
That whole East Coast line going from Boston down to DC. I rode that one. I enjoy riding Amtrak. I've done it a couple of times going back and forth from New York to DC. It's much better than taking Bolt bus.
Sure.
But that kind of stuff freaks me out. I'm expecting to see somebody behind a tree wearing a cape getting ready to blow up the train track as I go by.
I just don't like it because it's dirty, and I don't like not being in control of how fast I'm going or where I'm going.
You've ridden Bolt bus before, a Greyhound, haven't you?
I've ridden Greyhound. I've ridden the train. I've taken the train up to New York a couple times.
Yeah.
I just don't like it.
Okay, that's fair.
If driving in Manhattan wasn't completely terrifying, and the tolls to get in there are insane. You know, you pay $20 to go across a bridge. Get the hell out of here. What a scam. So no, you just take Jersey Transit. It's like $13 from Trenton into Penn Station.
Well, we have Ashe Schow coming up with Ashe kicking. And then our good friend from the Washington Times and Fox News, Monica Crowley, will be here. So what do you think? Should we take a break and bring on Ashe?
I think we should.
All right. Let's do it. We'll be back after this.
Enough already!
It's time for Ashe kicking with our good friend Ashe Schow of the Washington Examiner and New York Observer. Ashe.
Hello.
How's Ashe?
Ashe is doing pretty well, actually. It was a crazy busy week last week. Have some stuff in the pipeline that hopefully I have some big announcements coming up that, fingers crossed. So, yeah, good week. How have you been? I hear, aside from the popcorn situation.
Oh, I'm much better than free speech on college campuses today.
Look at that transition. You're like a professional or something.
That's right. And you know who really can't stand free speech on college campuses? Apparently the Chicago Tribune.
Oh, no, they're for free speech.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shocker.
Yeah, they're
tell us
taking
about
aim
it.
at the code. Sorry. My headline problem. But no, they're actually standing up for it by saying that, you know what? No, we don't want people, saying racist and misogynist stuff, right? But like at the same time, you're shutting down debate. You're shutting down critical thought and discussion that is so necessary on college campuses by saying it's racist and misogynistic, which is just it's getting absurd out there. And they brought up some of the examples of teachers that have been fired for, basically teaching a class a little blue in the comedy parlance.
Mhm.
And that it's just getting ridiculous out there. And I applaud the Chicago Tribune. They're a left-leaning paper. I applaud them for bringing it up. And more people need to be standing up for this.
Were there examples that they brought up going on in Illinois?
In Illinois, maybe. I'm not 100% sure if there was a specific Illinois one. They did bring up the University of Chicago, who has taken a stand on this issue by saying that, we don't want, the racism and misogyny or that they strongly supported debate and free speech. They wrote that debate or deliberation may not be suppressed because the ideas put forth are thought by some or even by most members of the university community to be offensive, unwise, immoral, or wrong-headed. I mean, that's kind of a statement. You always hear these things on college campuses where they're like, oh, it's racist or misogynistic. But like really what they're saying is that they don't like anything that they don't agree with politically. So if you're a right-leaning person and, even if you're just talking about taxes, like that's offensive to some because they can claim that your tax policies would help the rich, would hurt the poor, which are minorities and blah, 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 and go down that route.
So basically, it's a catch-all. Anything said by anybody that's considered to be on the right is automatically misogynistic and racist just because of the speaker.
Pretty much. I mean, that's where we're going right here. But it doesn't even, you don't even have to be right-leaning. You just have to...
Not be a leftist.
Right. You could be a leftist, and all you have to do is disagree with these people on campus. You can if you even disagree with their tactics, you get called an enemy, a traitor, or something. When it's just like, no, we think you're being very violent and unproductive on college campuses. You get called a racist or a traitor. It's just, they just don't want anyone to think differently than them. They believe that they have the moral high ground on everything. And so if you're not with them, you're basically Satan.
Seems like a reasonable assumption to make.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and these are our future leaders, right?
Yes. Yeah. If we survive this election cycle, we have these idiots to look forward to inhabiting the bureaucracy for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. A whole generation of Donald Trumps and Bernie Sanders.
I really wonder what these kids are going to do when they graduate.
I think that the ones that we could consider special snowflakes are going to remain in academia because they can't go to an office and try this crap. Like they'll just get fired or laughed at or put in their place. And then they'll end up leaving to another office and they'll just keep going. Or they'll try to sue for some sort of discrimination. Like, it was because I was black. It's like, no, it's because you didn't do any work and you complained about everything. But, so I think they're going to stay in academia. I think that a lot of them are the gender studies and African American studies students who are using these protests to try and get a job. They're sitting there saying, hey, you need more diversity in your faculty. You need to be teaching this issue so much more. And oh, by the way, I have a degree in it and I graduate in a few months. I mean, that's how it seems to me.
It does seem, I can go with you on that. I just wonder how many of those positions actually exist. What are there, like 1,500 campuses in the country?
Right. I mean that's the grand scheme of the African American studies and the gender studies is that it is nothing but an endless cycle of putting somebody in this degree, and the only thing they can actually do with that degree is teach that degree to somebody else, and there's just not enough positions for every one of them to teach. So they have these protests saying that it's all schools are racist and misogynistic, but if you hire more people to teach these things, then it'll be okay, which is really just like, was it the Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson shakedown?
Yeah, it's like Mao-Maoing done by elites instead of the underclasses.
Yeah. It's just, hey, you're racist and misogynistic, but if you hire me, I'll stop saying that.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Let's switch gears a little bit, Ash, and talk about what appears to be a booming business, and that's the campus sex police. It appears as though we're turning to Washington to spend more money to fight campus sex.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Washington that's forcing schools to fight campus sex, to essentially redefine everything as rape and then adjudicate that in such a way so that every accusation equals guilt. Because otherwise you risk losing federal funding. So every school is scared and every school is acting accordingly. Now, in the last budget, the Education Department's Office for Civil Rights, which is behind all of this, they got about a $7 million increase, which was about a 7% increase. Well, now there's a bunch of senators that are calling for another $30 million. So another 30% increase, or 30% increase. So, yeah, they just want more money. And the beauty of all of this, which we talk about the cycle in campus where, hire me, I just have this degree. It's also sort of like that with the Education Department, where they gave themselves new responsibilities. They reinterpreted the anti-sex discrimination law statute known as Title IX in order to give themselves these new responsibilities. And now they want money because they gave themselves new responsibilities, and now they have too many responsibilities and they don't have enough people to fight it. Really good scam, whole government, nice work if you can get it type situation.
Yeah. It's like as if I went out with a broom and started sweeping the streets and then went to my neighbors and said, hey, I decided that I'm the street sweeper and you guys owe me X amount per week. Even though nobody asked for this, I just took it upon myself to go do it. But I'm actually doing a function, which I don't think these people do anyway.
Right. I mean, unless that function is to, turn every person in America into a rapist and simultaneously rape victim, then they're doing a great job.
It's just simply amazing how, we've gone from what sex was like on college campuses in the 1960s to where it is today. The free love movement and, the pushing of the birth control pill liberated women. And now you are terrifying women to step on a college campus, because if they look to their left and there's a guy there, and look to the right and there's a guy there, one of those two men will rape her at some point while she's on the college campus. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. Well, not only that, but they're also telling women to redefine any drunken hookup that you might regret as to see that as rape, or giving them the option that, if the guy didn't want to date them afterwards, or they ended up dating some other girl, or just any number of reasons, you can go ahead and accuse them. And, what I was saying earlier today, that in some of these cases, the guy turns the girl down for sex and she ends up accusing him out of spite. There's just no winning.
No. I mean, are we going to see segregated campuses?
That seems to be the safe thing, but even that's not safe because some schools allow non-students to accuse their students of rape.
Shut it down. Shut every school down immediately. This is just destroying our entire society.
Right.
It's madness.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've got these affirmative consent policies that basically say, from the get-go, sex is rape unless you follow these very specific rules, which are you can't have any alcohol. You have to have basically a question and answer session. You have to ask for permission for every single escalation. You have to get a yes ahead of time. You can't just make a move. You have to ask to make a move. And again, alcohol negates all of that. And you have to look at every single sexual encounter as if you're complete strangers who don't know each other that are entering into sex, because past relationships, past sexual history mean nothing. It's the here and now, and the here and now you have to act as though you've never had sex before and you're terrified of the other person accusing you.
Only liberals could ruin sex.
They were the ones that were supposed to make it better. Like
Right.
you said, the empowerment, right? But now it's empowerment, but regret. Now, you're not a lady, so feel bad. And if you feel bad, that's his fault. He's a monster. It's not that you just regret getting drunk and making a bad decision. No. You didn't make a bad decision. You could never make a bad decision. You're a woman. It's his fault. He's a man.
I mean, would you be shocked if they started saying, hey, everybody should just have a camera in their dorm room from now on, and we're just going to tape all of this so we have proof?
I would tell that to people, but I believe that if the girl claims she was too drunk to consent, then she's going to claim she was too drunk to consent to being filmed, or that it's an invasion of privacy to film somebody against their will, and that'll be used against them. Even if they can prove they didn't rape somebody, they are still then going to be guilty of, pornography, right?
Sure.
Like,
Well, I'm just
you're
trying to
never
think of
gonna be able to win.
how far this could possibly go.
Right.
And will it get to the point where it's like both of you take a breathalyzer when you walk in, sign this paper, and then everything goes on camera? I mean, this is
Lawyers
like
in the
turning into
room.
a deposition. Yeah.
It is. And there's just no way to be safe, especially if you're a young man. There's been some women who have been accused by other women. That's the thing. Straight men don't make these accusations. It is women and gay men that are making these accusations.
I don't know why anyone would send their child to college at this point. If
Right.
if you got sons, there's no way I would send my boy to a college campus and say, have at it, especially the way I behaved when I went to school. That would be, completely off limits now. And it wasn't like I was a wild child back in the 90s, but that kind of behavior, you can get expelled. Your reputation could be ruined just by having a college hookup. And if you believe the rhetoric that the left is pushing, why would you send your daughter to a rape den, which apparently all college campuses are, according to leftists? Why bother sending your kid to school? It's just bad all the way around.
Right, absolutely. And that's the big question, is that if this is such a big issue, if it is as prevalent as you say, why are you pushing sending kids to colleges? Why on earth would you tell your daughter to go into a STEM field if you're saying all the men in STEM are going to rape you?
It doesn't make any sense.
No,
You can go to Rape You for free, guys. Won't that be fun?
No, it is absolutely absurd. And I mean, the other thing that I see about this is that this is such an epidemic. If this is so prevalent, why are none of the presidential candidates being asked about this? Like, they get asked about terrorism, right? Whenever there's a terrorist attack, whenever we're told that, it's a dangerous world or all of these other things, they get asked about it. They claim that mass shootings are so much more prevalent in America than anywhere else, if you discount terrorist attacks and every other type of, and gang violence. And basically, if you discount all gun shootings, and then America's the worst. But they talk about that as if it's an epidemic. And yet here's something that's supposedly an epidemic, and they never get asked about it, which to me signals that it's not really an epidemic and they know it.
Right. It's just a way to get people to watch the news.
Yeah.
Or read horrible stories, because that's what we all want to do. We all want to watch the police chase.
It
And
gives
that's kind of
Nancy
what this
Grace
is.
something to talk about.
Oh god,
I don't even think Nancy Grace talks about this stuff.
Yeah. Oh my god, this is like her whole life. Oh, the campus stuff.
Oh, really?
No, like I think rape is the only thing she really talks about.
I thought she only talked about kidnapping and mothers that kill.
Maybe she's moved on to that since her fantastic blow up and awfulness of the Duke lacrosse case, but yeah, I think those are her topics.
Hey, whatever happened to that horrible documentary that got all kinds of play at the festivals that turned out to be 90% bogus?
It's still like winning awards. It didn't win an Oscar.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't nominated for an Oscar. Lady Gaga's song that she did for it was nominated for an Oscar, and she didn't even win that. But
Right.
they did let her perform it, and Joe Biden did the introduction at the Oscars, and then a whole bunch of, people who say that they were sexually assaulted appeared on stage, and everyone's like, it's so powerful. And then she starts claiming that she had been raped as well. All right, well, we hadn't really heard about this before, but all right, yeah, sure, sell that song.
Wow. I didn't realize that's what Biden was there to introduce. And he's like the last person they should be putting out.
Ted Kennedy wasn't available.
He's
Yeah.
the face of this for more than one reason. Like, he's made this his issue, and he's also the creepiest politician right now.
Yeah.
Like, any number of photos of him, like, anytime he's anywhere giving a speech or whatever, he would be accused of Title IX violations so fast.
But that's
absolutely.
okay. He's our Uncle
But it's
Joe.
okay, yeah, he's a liberal.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been standing up for women forever. So if he wants to inappropriately touch that spouses and their daughters at events with the president, then yeah, let him, because he's VAWA. He did that. He stands up for girls. So I mean, that's one of the things of the left, is that they forgive so many terrible things that they claim are horrible, but because he's introduced this bill or that bill, I mean, that's the whole Bill Clinton thing. He's allowed to sexually assault or rape people because he was with them on other issues.
Ted Kennedy essentially murdered a mistress
Yep.
Yeah,
and now loved him. Loved him.
he's a saint. I mean, if you just look past that,
Right?
he's there on all the issues. So what if he killed somebody?
She had it coming.
Should have been a better swimmer.
Ugh.
Oh, it's vile. This stuff has to come to a head, though. I mean, we're reliving Victorian times all of a sudden.
Well, we've got a new push now. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, or FIRE, is now looking for a student or an institution who is willing to take on the federal government on this issue, and they will pay their legal fees for them. Now,
It's awesome.
the reason we're here is because the Education Department Office for Civil Rights issued a guidance document that did not go through the notice and comment period, even though it created substantial changes to the way the universities do business by, threatening to remove their funding if they don't follow this new interpretation, which was not anything they had presented in the past. So the document's not even really legal. And so now FIRE is looking to challenge that, the legality of that, and they will pay somebody's legal fees. So basically, if you've been accused or you're an institution that's dealing with this stuff, then FIRE wants to help you go after the government.
Is there? I guess there can't be a statute of limitations on this stuff, can there? Because it's not a real criminal proceeding.
No, I don't.
So if somebody got kicked out years ago, they could come back.
Yeah, but you don't even need anybody from years ago, because there's kids getting kicked out every week.
That's true. But I'm just talking about somebody with the guts to actually go with a lawsuit. I get that FIRE's paying for all of it, but still, you're going to take a hell of a lot of heat.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder. Well, Ash, how much longer is Hillary going to get away with claiming that New York is her home state?
Ugh. I mean,
Obama still says Illinois is his home state. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if Hillary is really pushing it out there. I know a lot of other people are, but that's not your home state. You lived there for 16 years. That's less than a quarter of your life. And it's only recently that you moved there, and you only moved there to carpetbag.
Right. And she lives in DC.
And she also lives in DC. And like she was in Arkansas most of her life. She's lived in a lot of different places. And it's like, I get it. I've lived in a lot of different places. I don't know. People always ask me where I'm from. I'm like, I don't know. You gotta define that question more. Is it where I was born? Then that's Oregon. If it's where I grew up, that's Florida. Where I went to college, that's Florida. Where I graduated high school, that's Massachusetts. Where I live now, it's, like it's somewhere else. Like I get it. But
I mean, you can say adopted home state. I think that's the proper term.
Yeah.
But saying, oh, I'm a New Yorker. No, you're not.
Right.
But she grew up in Illinois.
Yeah. New Yorkers get it. She
Yeah.
went to college in Massachusetts. She went to law school in Connecticut. Then she moved to DC, where she kept failing the bar. So she married Bill Clinton and moved to Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
It's so ridiculous because think about this. Say Sarah Palin were to move to New York and somehow win some sort of elective office in New York State, and then started calling herself a New Yorker. New Yorkers and the mainstream media would go absolutely apeshit. But apparently it's completely okay if Hillary calls herself a New Yorker, when, let's face it, she's probably only spent about 2 weeks total in New York. Maybe 3.
Yeah, and I think most of that was directing people where to put a server in the bathroom.
Yeah, there you go.
Picking out curtains for the house.
Hillary Clinton picks out curtains. Okay. I mean, she claimed to do that in an email, right? That and yoga, that's all her emails were?
Yes, the yoga. Very huge. I got to ask you, this is not something that you wrote about. Maybe you have it coming out, but I was on Fingers' favorite site. If you want to give out that address, Fingers. The site that freaks you out every day. What do you call
Drudge
it?
Report.
Yeah.
The lead every day at Drudge Report should be,
But they have the headline is Huma's first time she ever saw Hillary. Did you guys see this?
No.
Her thought was, oh my God, she's so beautiful. I shit you not. Like, this is direct quotes. I was like, wait,
yeah,
what?
there was something else that in that article. I only saw, people were sending around the quotes that Huma said that, like, what if she were to die tomorrow, Hillary would go down in history as one of the most influential women of, like, all time or something.
What?
Yeah. Or it's just
a very limited knowledge of history.
Yeah. I mean, it just astounds me that Hillary has so much support from women, older women, granted, where feminism means something else, where it's okay to ride your husband's coattails.
Sure.
To the White House.
Well, it's okay to like live off your husband. I can't remember if it was Betty Friedan or who was the other big one at the same time. Gloria Steinem, one of those two. I think it's Friedan, that lived like a cushy lifestyle and got to write her book while her husband's paying for everything and she's got maids taking care of the house, and then bitching about, suburbia is a concentration camp or something like this.
Right, exactly. You get to write about how women are so oppressed when you have the whole world on your plate. I mean, you have like no idea what other women go through.
Oh, it's shocking.
Well, it's this whole thing in America where it's like women have so few problems in this country that you have to basically invent problems. That it's like, oh, well, because somebody said Hillary is shrill, that's sexist. She has to deal with so much sexism on the campaign. Or when Bernie Sanders said people shouting about gun control, even though he said it about everybody, because he said it at the debate and he was standing next to a woman, that meant he was making some sexist comment about women shouting. Those are the kinds of problems that women have in America. Meanwhile,
and we have to pay taxes on tampons.
Yeah, the what, $7 a year?
Right. Well, it depends on what state you live in too. Not all states have it.
Right. Well, this is just like so stupid because it's like the government's gonna just find another way to make up that money. You're still going to be paying the taxes, ladies.
Right. Get mad about all taxes. Don't just nitpick.
Yeah. And it's like tampons, and then there was something else, right? There was diapers.
Sure.
Or it's like
'Cause only women have to buy those.
why not toilet paper?
Right.
Food and literally everything else that we need.
I have one story here that I am hesitant to bring up because, you know, usually we talk about the whole campus sex stories that they are, you know, completely blown out of proportion.
Which I'm sure your listeners just love hearing
well,
about.
let's finish up with this. It does have something to do with sex. A study was done at the University of Queensland. How long does sex normally last? A study was done. Ladies, average of minutes. How long do you think the average sexual encounter lasts from penetration to you both give up?
Well, if I say what I think it's going to be in the study, then I know what your response fingers is going to be. It's going to be like, oh, you've been having some bad sex, but it's not from my experience. I'm going to say 7 minutes.
I was going to say 6.
5 minutes.
Yep.
Wow.
5 minutes is the average. Let's see.
Is that even?
Yeah. In an article for The Conversation, this doctor said in his latest research, he found penetration can last from 33 seconds to 44 minutes.
33 seconds.
33 seconds.
33 seconds. Apparently.
I like that's such a weird number to throw out.
Yeah, 33 seconds. Apparently
33
that's
seconds to what?
44 minutes.
44 minutes.
This is an averaging, right? That's how we get these weird numbers.
Yeah, but most it's 5.4 minutes. It's the average across different couples.
Maybe if they've been together a long time and it's just kind of like, hey, we got to be somewhere. Quickie, all right.
I'm thinking hooker.
They get paid by the hour, though, don't they?
Hookers? No. It's strictly paid by deposit.
Hotels are by the hour.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I thought you buy like an hour of their time.
No.
No, you.
It's basically.
Finger seems to know better than us.
Well,
right.
No,
I only see this stuff on television.
I have only paid for sex in the traditional way, which is dating. Not an actual transaction where I've gone down and talked to a woman on a street corner. But from what I understand, it's until the deed is done. It's not an hourly. They're not union.
Yeah, it was my understanding that it's basically a menu. Like,
yeah,
so much money for this, so much money for that. Doesn't matter how long it takes.
Right, and of course, a hooker is going to want it to end as quickly as possible.
Sure.
I was at the Rio in Las Vegas, and there was a bar that must have had 10 or 12 hookers at the bar. And I was playing video poker, and this woman, I'll never forget, she wore the tight white pants and a white tank top, must have gone upstairs 3 times with 3 different men in a period of about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Wow.
So that's pretty gross. I think that's where the 33 seconds comes into play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are either one of you shocked by that? 5.4 minutes? Apparently not.
No. If it's going to be a massive study like that, I'm not surprised.
Okay.
That's why we both guessed low.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think from experience. What would it be? No idea. No idea what the average is.
You don't pull out a clock?
Nope. I try. Nope.
You're not looking at your watch?
Nope.
No.
Don't.
All right. Anything else?
No, I think we literally covered everything sexual going on right now in the world.
Follow Ashe on Twitter at Ashe Schow, and of course you can check out all of her work at the Washington Examiner and the New York Observer. Thanks, Ashe.
Thanks for having me on.
Enough already!
And Monica Crowley's here right now. Monica, how are you?
Hi, guys. I'm doing great. How are you?
The whole world is burning, Monica. That's how I'm doing, and it's kind of fun to sit back and watch.
Unfortunately, we're all participants because we're all voters in the end. And some of us are in media, and some of us are doing this and that. So we are all part of the great burning.
When you don't have a dog in the fight, though, you know, I early on, and I won't ask you who you are supporting or were supporting, but I don't care if people know who I was supporting. I was a Rand Paul guy or a Scott Walker guy, and once those two gents dropped out, I'm just sitting back with my feet up on the table watching the show. So
and it's quite a spectacle, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what's your take on the latest? I mean, you've got candidates not wanting to debate each other. You got sex scandals. You got reporters claiming that they're getting roughed up. Have you seen anything like this?
I have not. We've all, I think, been observing politics for many years, and this is really something unprecedented. The whole dynamic is unprecedented. And what's strange about it is that, every 4 years we hear the same refrain, which is, this is the most important election of our lifetimes. Well, this time I think it actually holds true, because after 8 years of Obama's fundamental transformation of the nation, his words, not mine, the nation, he has succeeded in setting the nation on a radically different course than what the founding fathers intended in terms of limited government, fiscal responsibility, strong national defense, economic freedom. He has turned that around and has gone very far, I think, in turning the United States into a European-style socialist democracy. So if there is a Democrat who is elected in November, all of those changes in terms of really shaking America down to the core, stripping away all of the foundational pillars that the founders put in place and replacing them with something entirely different, a la Bernie Sanders, those changes will be locked in by Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, whomever the Democrats decide to put up as their nominee. Those changes will be permanently locked in. So the tentacles of Obamacare, for example, will be so wrapped around every nook and cranny of this economy that you'll never be able to unwind it. So literally, I think, in terms of our lifetimes, this is the most important election. And what we're seeing is a spectacle happening on both sides. Part of this is a function of where we are culturally in terms of reality television. And this is not a direct hit on Donald Trump. He is a creature of reality TV, but he is also representing where we are culturally. And it's happening on the Democratic side. It's happening on the Republican side. It's a whole different ballgame. And I think traditional politicians are trying to find their sea legs. I think the establishment on both sides is trying to find its sea legs and hold on for dear life to preserve its own gravy train. You have a lot of different dynamics at work, and people are lashing out. Institutions are lashing out, and that's why you're seeing this great kind of cluster beep that a lot of us are trying to navigate through as well.
Oh, Monica, we like to wildly speculate because why not? And everybody likes to pretend that they're experts. Sure.
Right.
Well,
it's all good.
A year from now, are either of the two main political parties still standing?
I think they're still standing, Tracy, but I'm not sure in what condition. I think a lot rides on what happens on both sides. I mean, Hillary Clinton goes out there and she's supremely confident that she's going to get this nomination. And look, she may very well, if the negotiation between Obama and Hillary that I've often spoken about with you guys has already come to pass and the Clintons have won that negotiation in terms of what inside information the Obamas and the Clintons have on each other. If she's won that negotiation, then of course she's supremely confident by saying, yeah, nothing's going to happen to me on this email investigation because I know nothing is going to happen. Or she could go down in a ball of flames, if I'm right, and Obama's the one behind all of this, in which case you've got a mess now on the Democratic side. I think if that were to happen, they would go with somebody institutionally more acceptable, like a Joe Biden, for example, or even a Governor Jerry Brown out of California.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to go with a Bernie Sanders, okay? But that would shake the party, okay, with all these people voting for Hillary and voting for Sanders. That would shake the Democratic Party. And, of course, we all know what's happening on the Republican Party with Donald Trump, the Never Trump movement. You got Cruz, Never Cruz movement. I mean, you have people who are firmly and emotionally invested in one of these candidates. And if the other one gets nominated, or if the Republican establishment pulls the rug out from either one of them, then you've got a revolt like you've never seen. So this is a long way of saying it all depends, but you will still have the two parties. The question is, in what condition will they be? Will they be mere shells of what we've seen, or will they be strengthened out of this process?
Right. And sorry, Fingers.
No, go ahead.
I'm just looking forward to New York as well. The 19th is your primary up there.
Yes.
And aside from Hillary, getting perp walked, which we all want to see, but we think it's a remote possibility. If she loses New York to Sanders, they get thrown into chaos next week or in the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. So the New York primary is on April 19th, and I live here, so I've been following the tracking polls. And what's fascinating is that Hillary Clinton, for months and months and months, has been leading Bernie Sanders in her quote-unquote home state by 40, 50 points, and now it's down to 10 and shrinking. Mm-hmm. In some ways, this election cycle on both sides, in terms of the Trump supporters and the Bernie supporters, the people who want revolt on either side, state to state, what's happening, and again, not every state, but the overall trend is what's happening is that these supporters are it's kind of like a torch relay where one state passes off to another state and is signaling like, please don't let us down, take the torch and run with it. And then the next state takes the torch and they run with it. And then they pass it off to the next state. The Trump phenomenon seems to be going that way, and the Bernie Sanders one does as well. I don't know what's going to happen in New York. I do know her lead is shrinking substantially. And if she loses New York, all bets are off. And it sort of feeds into my theory, which was that if I'm right that Obama and Valerie Jarrett are behind the FBI investigation and weakening her so much, and then they're going to go in for the coup de grace eventually, that they had to weaken her at the polls first. Because if she were totally dominant and beating Bernie and walking away with a coronation in every state, beating him by 20, 30 points, if she looked invincible, then they couldn't do this, because then it would have looked like a coup d'etat. So they couldn't have done it. They had to hemorrhage her and weaken her at the polls first, so that if they go in with an FBI indictment and then a word from the president that she's not the best choice, then it makes it easier for them to remove her from the calculation. They could make the argument, look, she's not that strong anyway. She's losing to a disheveled 74-year-old socialist. So this is creating almost a perfect storm. And look, I could be wildly wrong about my theory. I don't think so, but I could be. But this now seems to be a gathering storm around her of legal and political jeopardy, and she's not going to have an easy time getting out of it.
What I find comical about this whole thing is, say that she is removed and they try to slide in some savior, whether it's Joe Biden or, like you mentioned, Governor Jerry Brown, and you're not the first person that I've heard mention his name. They'll put in somebody like that because they can't give it to Bernie. Can you explain to me the difference between Jerry Brown and Bernie Sanders at this point?
No, because they're all basically the same guy, right? Yeah. Look, the truth is, this is Barack Obama's Democratic Party. Barack Obama is not a Democrat. I've been saying this for a million years now. He is not a Democrat. He is a socialist. You can call it communist, you can call it Marxist, whatever you want to call it. He is a socialist. He used the Democratic Party as a vehicle to get elected, and he needed to dress it up 8 years ago because socialism wasn't as accepted as it is today. So he had to sort of fake his way through. But everybody knows that the guy is a committed socialist. Bernie Sanders can't even be bothered with dressing it up. And the reason is because the party is completely different. The party is Barack Obama's Socialist Party now. So Hillary has been trying to navigate this because all she knew was the Democratic Party of her husband, which was a moderate, pragmatic, Southern-based party. Barack Obama's party is a completely different ball of wax. So, you know, they are, Jerry Brown has always been way out there, Governor Moonbeam, you know, he's out there on the left, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, they're all way out there on the left, but that's where the party is. And that's why Bernie Sanders is really giving her a run for her money.
Now, Monica, I've got two questions, a quick yes or no, and then a follow-up to that. Bernie Sanders, do you think there's any way that the Democrats give him the nomination?
No.
Okay. So my follow-up to this, because I agree with that, and I was thinking this last night watching the Fox News panel, Fox News Sunday, Cadell Schoen and Laboudier, whatever. They're talking about the rules changes on the Republican side, and I'm thinking, is there a chance that the Democrats are going to, they have a rules meeting, obviously, going into their convention. Is there a chance that they're going to have a rules meeting and take a vote on whether or not you have to have been a Democrat ahead of time?
Of course. Well,
I mean, that's a simple enough rule, and it seems pretty innocuous, but then Bernie's out.
You know what? All of the attention, let's take a step back. This whole race, everything we thought we once knew for sure, blown out the window. Jeb Bush, blown out. Marco Rubio, blown out. All of the rules, things that would have been unthinkable 4 years ago, 2 years ago, are happening, right? And the precedent was essentially set by Barack Obama. I mean, when he became president, things that were once unthinkable in the U.S., like socialized medicine, is a reality. So what I think is actually going to happen, all of this attention is on the Republican side. And, oh, my God, the Rules Committee, and what are they going to do, and Trump, and 1237, and oh, my God. I think we're all focused on the wrong thing. I think that's what's really going to surprise everybody is exactly what you say, which is that the Democrats are going to be thrown into chaos. And the Republicans are going to look tame by comparison. Both parties do not have a nominee until their nominating conventions and that night of the nominating convention. And both parties can do whatever they want. So when people say, oh, you're serious about Biden, doesn't he have to get on state ballots? No, because the party can come in and rip up everything and be like, okay, we choose this guy. You know, and the Republicans can essentially do it too. They can do whatever they want. And I think just wait until the drama breaks on the Democratic side. That's all I want to say.
And switching over to the Republicans quickly, you know, a lot of people have been focused on Trump and his antics, and it's turned some people off. And I must admit, while I have enjoyed some of the show, some of the stuff has turned me off as well. But one of the things that it doesn't seem like a lot of people are focusing on is not so much the antics by Donald Trump, but the talking head folks and the I like to call them the beach house wing of the Republican Party inside the Beltway. You brought it up earlier, the never Cruz, never Trump crowd. At some point, shouldn't somebody call these people out and tell them to grow up?
Yeah. And I've been doing this on Fox, you know, and I get the slings and arrows that come via Twitter. Like, Monica, how could you sell out? You know, nobody is selling out. This is a grown-up process. Running for president is not for wallflowers, and people voting for president should not be wallflowers either. That doesn't mean stop supporting your candidate. It doesn't mean you don't have a choice. You do. But let's grow up in terms of this process, okay? I worked for Richard Nixon during the last 4 years of his life. I mean, the stories that this man would tell about 1960 and how the Kennedy family basically stole that presidential election from him would make your hair stand on end. The stuff we're talking about now is so minor and honestly ridiculous when you look at the history of elections in this country, going all the way back to the founding fathers. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. I mean, these people hated each other's guts. They dragged their wives into it. I mean, if they had Twitter, they would have done the Heidi Cruz Melania tweet. Okay, all of this is not to say it's great or nice. No, but this is hardball. This is about running for the most important job in the world, the leader of the free world. And if you can't take the heat, whether as a supporter, and learn to lose graciously, or as a candidate, where it's bare knuckles and you better play the game according to the rules, because if you don't, you're going to lose. I'm sorry. I mean, this is the big time. These are the big leagues, and everybody ought to grow up here. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be happy about your vote. How many times have each one of us pulled a lever for somebody where we're rolling our eyes, going, oh my God, this is my choice? I mean, really, but you suck it up because you care about the country more than anything. And you might not feel great about your vote, but when you look at the alternative, if the alternative is worse in your mind, then you suck it up and you do it for America.
Monica, while we have you on here, of course, we love to talk foreign policy with you. Iran is now claiming that the United States is violating the nuclear deal. Iran.
Yeah.
Claiming that we're double-crossing them. You believe this?
Yeah, no. Because they have literally the weakest American president who gave away the store to get this deal, who would never violate it because he staked his whole foreign policy legacy on this deal, and is a 98-pound weakling anyway, so he would never violate this deal. No, they're violating the deal all over the place. I mean, they're engaged in their long-range missile program, which is a red line. They've got centrifuges running that shouldn't be running. They are violating this up and down. Okay, they took our American sailors for about 24 hours, had a propaganda video made of some of our sailors crying and very upset, released that propaganda video. They are messing with this deal in every which way you can possibly imagine, and yet they have the cojones to claim that we're violating it. I mean, they got everything they wanted. They got the lifting of the sanctions. They got $150 billion flowing in. They've got the Europeans now locking down deals on aerospace technology and all this other stuff to help them with their nuclear program. There's no turning back. Obama signed the deal. Obama approved the deal, and it's a point of no return, and that's it. And this is a very, very dangerous time. We focus on ISIS. We focus on the immediate and urgent threats of violent jihadism. But to me, the much longer term and much more dangerous threat is Iran with nuclear weapons, because not only can they threaten Israel and Europe directly, eventually they'll be able to threaten the United States directly and hand off radioactive material, nuclear weapon material, to groups like ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas, whom they support across the board, and allow them to do their dirty work in the West by detonating a dirty bomb somewhere. So this is by far the most dangerous threat that we face.
Wow. Thank you.
And on that lovely note, should we get back to Donald Trump and fun?
No, but there's so much other stuff going on. And I wondered, too, since we have you about foreign policy matters, what do you think will be the fallout from these Panama Papers that everybody's running their mouths about today, outside of the United States, for the most part?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. Look, part of the investigation into the Clintons is the Clinton Foundation. And alleged corruption and violation of public corruption laws in terms of hustling, using her position as Secretary of State to hustle foreign entities, including foreign governments, to donate to the Clinton Foundation in exchange for favors from the Secretary of State. That's an allegation. The FBI is looking into all of this. That is one part of all of this. I mean, these offshore accounts to get around sanctions. This is something I think all of us have assumed that the world's greatest dictators were doing. I mean, I certainly assumed that about Vladimir Putin, who is allegedly worth somewhere between $70 and $100 billion. Okay, sure. You don't stuff that in your mattress. Okay, you put it somewhere. Yasser Arafat was guilty of this. The Iranian mullahs got around sanctions for years by doing this. Muammar Gaddafi was guilty of this. I think everybody kind of assumes that the world's dirtiest dictators have been doing this. But now, once it's out in the open, then it's got to spark some global investigations. And that's, I think, now you're starting to see, we got to look into this now. And when dictators are pushed back into a corner, they tend to lash out. So this could also be a dangerous time. They lash out, they try to distract by invading other countries and engaging in terrorist activity and so on. So this is not a good or a safe time for any of us.
No, and it's not even just dictators that you would think would be doing this. It looks like the Prime Minister of Iceland's involved. What is it? The President of Argentina is involved. And I was waiting for the Clinton name to pop in all of this because I know about the foundation. I'm like, they have to be involved in this stuff. They have to know that this is going on.
I know.
But I guess
I know.
There's 11.5 million records or something like that. So maybe they just haven't gotten around to finding their names yet. But I mean, to me, this is just
I think this is part of the FBI investigation, Tracy, that is not done. In fact, my column in the Washington Times this week is going to address this. Everybody's been focused on the classified material part of the equation of the FBI investigation, and that might already be done, and they might be ready to move on that. But that is the what part of the Clinton investigation. More important is the why part. Why did they have these top secret documents? What were they doing with them? Why did she have them on her private server? Why did she have a private server to begin with? And the speculation is this, which is that they were using her position as Secretary of State to leverage big money donations coming in from foreign entities and foreign government, maybe from some of these offshore accounts, who knows, into the Clinton Foundation to advance their own financial interests. This is a big, big mess. And if you want to know the reason why Bernie and Trump are doing so well, it's this. People don't feel protected. They look at a protected elite global class and then they think, well, we have to live under the rules that they have made for us. These rules suck, and we're the ones on the ground having to deal with this. But that protected class does not, and people are rebelling against it big time.
Well, Monica, we only have about 30 seconds left, and I have to ask you probably the most important question of this interview.
Okay, I'm ready.
According to ESPN, sources are saying that Ryan Fitzpatrick will not be back with the New York Jets. Your thoughts?
I know. I'm disappointed. I liked him. You know, he'd been kicking around the NFL for quite a while and finally had his big moment in the sun with the Jets last year and performed very well under tough circumstances. So I'd be very disappointed to see him go. And if the team is leaning on Geno Smith, help me, Jesus. Is what I have to say as a long-suffering Jets fan. Okay.
Follow Monica on Twitter at Monica Crowley. You can catch her column every Thursday at the Washington Times and probably the lead on Drudge Report.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations for that last week.
Yeah, like it was last week. Woohoo!
Monica, when am I going to see you on my favorite Fox Business show, Kennedy?
I love Kennedy. She is amazing. I did her show a couple of months ago, and then her taping schedule and my schedule just haven't been meshing, but I'd love to go back because I love her.
Get on there. And do you ever do Red Eye?
Do you know that I used to do Red Eye like back in the day when Gutfeld was still doing it? It's so much fun. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, something happened. I sort of fell off their radar, and then my nights got busy and with prime time and everything. But I'm actually booked to do Red Eye again on April 25th, Monday night.
Nice.
So I'm very psyched.
Cool.
Monica Crowley, everyone. Thank you so much, Monica.
Always my pleasure, guys. Thank you. And congrats on the new podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Monica Crowley, everyone. And that's it for this Enough Already podcast. My thanks to Ashe Schow of the Washington Examiner and New York Observer. And, of course, my thanks go out to Monica Crowley. Remember, you can always subscribe to the Enough Already podcast on iTunes. Catch us on Stitcher, SoundCloud, and the TuneIn app. Yeah, the TuneIn app. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.